And now it's time to preview an upcoming game with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to be taking a look at another Kickstarter preview game. We're going to take a look at Wild Fun West, which is a game for 4 to 8 players, kind of a party game size game, and one that is going to play relatively quickly, in which players are trying to get different professions and build different buildings in order to accomplish a series of objectives. Those objectives being to build 4 out of 6 buildings that have been given to them on a secret information card. The game plays pretty quickly, and it's over a series of short rounds with a lot of bidding and auctioning. So real quick, why don't we take a look at the prototype components for this game. We'll take a look at how it plays, and then we'll come back here and I'll sum it all up for you. First thing you're going to do when you start playing Wild Fun West is you're going to choose one of these different scenarios to play. Now when you look at this, you'll notice that there are 12 different piles of scenarios. There are 3 for 4 players, 3 for 5 players, 2 for 6, 7, and 8 players each. Now each of these has a different list of buildings on it, so let's take a look at one of the 4-player ones. You can see here that this is the Dodge City scenario, and that this card requires you to build the stable, stagecoach, ranch, school, the repair store, and the saloon. And each of these cards in this set will have a different listing of buildings. So this one has the post office, the barber and medicine, the barn, the funeral parlor, the hotel, and the stable. And the other 2 cards in this set will be different from that, with some overlap. So you're going to decide how many players you have and which scenario you'd like to use, select one of them, and put the rest of these cards away in order to begin the game. You'll deal out one of these cards to each player, and they will have their secret objectives that they'll be trying to build throughout the game. After each player has an objective card, everybody's going to get what is called a character card from this character deck. You'll shuffle this deck and you'll deal out 1 card to each player, and that will be their character for the game. So we'll deal out 1 to each player and we'll reveal them all in order to see who is who. So this player here is going to be Billy the Kid. You can see on this card it tells you the title. It also shows you how much income Billy the Kid gets, which is going to be 3 as a base, and this is the same for all characters. In addition, under that it has an ability, and it says once after the bank is built, you can immediately take $15. So Billy the Kid is going to rob the bank once it's built. And each character will have their own abilities. So Wyatt Earp here, on this one, it says once per turn when a card is revealed to be bid on, he can change it from open to closed or closed to open bidding. And this will be an interesting play dynamic for this character because they can decide when people get to know what other people are bidding. The third character here has Bill McDonald, who is a sheriff. Also 3 income, and when the sheriff card or the sheriff profession is revealed, he may take it for free without having to bid on it. And finally, our last player has Doc Holliday, who has a choice of 2 different professions, or rather, for 2 different professions, can simply take them without having to bid if he pays $4 to the bank for each of them. In addition to each player's character card, each player is going to get $5 to start the game, and after this is all set up, the game will begin. Each round of Wild Fun West is going to take turn over 3 different separate phases. The first phase is going to be the profession card auction, in which players will try and bid on these profession cards either in open or closed auctions to get them in order to get more income and special abilities. The second stage of each round, or the second part of each round, is going to be the building card auction, in which 3 buildings will be available, but only 1 will be built. The third part of each turn is going to be income phase, where players earn income which they can use on future rounds in order to participate in these different types of auctions. But first, let's go over a professions card auction. In different player number games, a 4-player game, 5 up through 8, you're going to auction off different numbers of these cards. In a 4- and 5-player game, it's going to be 3 cards, but in a 6-player game, it'll be 4, and in a 7- or 8-player game, it will be 5. So let's pretend we're playing a 4-player game like we saw earlier. You're going to auction off 3 cards from this deck, and whoever is the first player, indicated by the first player card, is going to start these auctions. And they will reveal the top card of the deck, and they will look at the card and see what it is and what characteristics may exist on it. So here, we can see that this is the Illusionist. The first thing you'll want to look at is the star on the right-hand side of the card, and it will say either open or closed bid. In this case, it's a closed bid. And what this means is that everybody will, from their money supply, that they have, their own personal money supply, take an amount of money in their hand and reveal it in order to bid on this card. And everyone will reveal simultaneously. So here I have 2 money. Maybe this isn't the highest bid. Somebody bid 3 or 4. They will get this card. Whoever bids the most will get the Illusionist, but everyone loses the money they bid, and it goes back to the bank. The player who wins this auction will pick this card up and put it in their hand. And they can play it to the table at any point later for 1 money, and it will give them all the abilities on the card. So let's take a look at those. We can see here, from looking at the Illusionist, that he has several different traits written on his card. The first you can see is a card with an X through it. This means that if the schoolmarm, which is written next to it, is not in play, this person gets +1 income. Underneath that, you can see a check mark in a card with the Undertaker, a green check mark, and that is if the Undertaker is in play, he gets +2 income for that. Underneath that, you can see a gun with the word Judge written next to it. This card bans the Judge from being in play. So if the the Illusionist comes in play while the Judge is already in play, or if the person tries to play the Judge after the Illusionist is in play, that card isn't allowed and has to be placed back in its player's hand. At the bottom of the card, you can see some income statistics. This adds to or modifies the income of yourself and the player next to you. You'll see it provides 0 income in the blue arrow to the player who plays this card, but it provides -2 income to the player to his left. So this card is going to hurt the player to your left in their income phase. After we've auctioned off that profession card, we're going to auction off a second one all the way until 3. And here we'll see we have the Doctor, and this is another closed bid, and it's a card that has a different trait on it. So we can see here we still have that the check mark on the card, but instead of the professions, we have buildings next to it this time. We can see we have the general store and the stagecoach, and you can tell these are buildings because they're written in red. For each one of these buildings that are in play, the Doctor is going to get an extra income. Underneath that, we can see some text next to a hammer. So this hammer here is next to the word clinic, which is another building because it's in red. This means that if you have this profession and you are attempting to build the clinic, you're going to get extra money from the bank each time you put money on the clinic to build it. So the bank will always match however much money you pay. Underneath that, we can see that this bans the Undertaker and it bans the Trapper, and then it provides 1 income to the player who has it in front of them and -1 income to the player to their left. The second type of bidding is an open bid. You can see here on this, the gambler here, it is an open bid in that green star. What this means is that everybody has a chance to bid around the table. Starting with the first player, they can bid on it, and maybe they bid 1, and the next player can bid 2 or more, or they can pass, and everybody is going to keep bidding around the table until all but 1 player passes. So 1 player bids and everyone else decides it's too much, and that player will pay their money to the bank and take the card into their hand with the option of playing it to the table for 1 money later and getting all of the income and the abilities for it. After you've auctioned off the appropriate number of cards for the player number of game that you're playing, you're going to move on to the buildings auction. So why don't we check that out right now. So here we are at the building auction, and how this works is that no matter how many players are in the game, you're always going to reveal 3 cards from the top of this deck. And these 3 cards will be different buildings that are up for being built this turn. It'll only be 3 buildings, and there's only 3 each turn. So what you're going to do is you're going to have these buildings out, and players are going to bid money from their supplies on them in order to get them built. And only the building that gets the most money will be built. So if multiple people want one building built, it's likely that that one will be built. However, if you have enough money, maybe you can force things to go your way, or maybe some players don't care, and they simply throw money one way or the other to try and spite another player. But essentially, these 3 buildings will be out, and you'll check your card, your objectives card, to see if you want to build any of them. So we have Courthouse, Prairie, and Stable. And we look at our building here, so Courthouse, Prairie, and Stable. Nobody on this one cares. Well, actually, we have the Courthouse. So this player probably wants to bid their money on the Courthouse to get it built, because the goal is to get 4 of your 6 buildings on your card built. Now, in addition to that, let's say that we happen to have the Judge in play, who gives us extra money for trying to build the Courthouse. So we've got this in play, and we're going to be bidding. So from our supply of money, we decide we want to bid 1 on the Courthouse. Now, since we have the Judge and he gets extra money for trying to build the Courthouse, the bank is going to match that 1 money, and essentially bidding 1 is going to give him 2. If he had bid 2, it would go up to 4, and you kind of get the idea there. So more money, bank always matches. And then it would go to the next player, who has an option to bid on this building or any of the other buildings, or to simply pass. And if they decide to bid, they could maybe bid on the Prairie. Maybe they need the Prairie for their objective, or maybe one of their cards that they have in play gets bonus money for having the Prairie already be built. And it goes around the table in this manner. The next player has an option to bid on any of these cards. Maybe they also want to see the Prairie built, so they put a money on it. And the next player also wants to see it, and it's matched up again. And we're back to the start player, who can then bid more money. They bid 1, but it's matched by the bank. So now it's up to 6 total on that card. And this will go on in this manner until 3 players pass in a row in a 4-player game, or in more player games until all of the other players pass in a row. At this point, the card with the most money on it will be built. So we see we have 6 on the courthouse. It wins and is going to be built, and all of the money from all of the buildings gets returned to the bank. The 2 cards that aren't built are going to be discarded next to the deck, forming a discard pile that will get shuffled again when all of these cards have been gone through and we need more cards in order to build more buildings. This building will stay in play, it'll go to its own area, and this will be one of the buildings out on the table. If this is one of your buildings you need, you're 1/4 of the way towards winning the game. Otherwise, you're going to want to continue on and try and get more professions to allow you to build the buildings that you need. So after we've gone through the whole professions auction and after that the building portion, we're going to go into the income phase of each round, in which each player is going to get money for the cards they have on the table and for cards that other players have on the table to the right of them. So each player will affect the player to their left. So let's take a look at this player here, who has Bill McDonald for a base income of 3. They also happen to have the judge, who has an income of 2, bringing them up to 5. And the judge gets a bonus for having the sheriff in play, which is right next to it. So that's another 1 income, bringing them up to 6 income. The sheriff here provides 3 more, so we're up to 9, and would get a bonus if the barber weren't in play. But the player here has the barber in play, so we don't get that bonus. In addition, if the doctor were in play, they'd get +1 more, but it's not, so no bonus there. Then we look to the player to their right, who affects the player to the left. And we can see that they provide 2 income to the player to their left for the barber. So now we're up to 11 income. And they would take this money from the bank and put it in their personal supply, adding to whatever they had. And you're going to do this for each player. So for example, we have this player here who has Doc Holliday for 3 money. And they have the gambler for an additional 1, who gets more money if the saloon is in play or the church is in play, which neither one is. In addition, they're going to get money from this player, who gives 1 plus 1 more to them, so they have 3, 4, 5, 6 money, and would take that from the supply and add it to theirs. Lastly, we have this player over here, who has Billy the Kid for 3 money. They have the barber for 2 more money, who gets a bonus if the judge is in place, so we have 6 now, and another 2 for the prospector, but they're not there. And the trapper, who gives them +1 more. So we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and no more bonuses for the general store or the blacksmith. So they'd take their 7 money and add it to their supply. After this is all done, we're going to move on to the next round, with the first player card passing to the next player. And that player is going to go on. They're going to start with the new round of profession auctions, 3 more professions in a 4-player game. Then another round of building, in which 3 of those buildings are placed out and everyone can bid around the table. And then more income. And this is going to go on in this manner until one player manages to build 4 buildings from their objectives cards. So maybe I get the train station, the saloon, the courtroom, and the clinic built, and I am the winner because I'm the first one to get this done. If multiple players happen to reach this situation at the same time, the amount of money that each player has is going to break the tie. So you want to be able to get four of your 6 buildings built without spending the most money, and if you manage to do so, you are going to be the overall winner of Wild Fun West. And there you have it. That is Wild Fun West. As I said, a very interesting, very easy to learn and easy to play game for 4 to 8 players that involves a lot of auctioning and some secret information. So you don't know, definitely in more player games, higher player number games, how many of your buildings are going to overlap with your opponent. So there's definitely an aspect of hoping that you have some overlap so that they can help you build these different buildings. You know, you're not trying to bid alone to win a building or to have a building built, but there's the hopes that you're not overlapping too much, because in building one building you may be helping an opponent who is getting closer to their 4 out of 6 buildings that they need. The game has a lot of variability. There's all those different scenarios for different numbers of players. 3 at 4 players and 5 players, and then 2 each for 6, 7, and 8 is still quite a bit of variability. And I think the more players you have, the better this game is going to get. There's going to be more interaction, there's going to be more fighting for getting different buildings built, and it's going to be more interesting. I definitely enjoyed my plays of it. It's one that I think will probably do pretty well on Kickstarter, and I'm sure they're looking for your support. So if you'd like to support them, there's going to be a link down at the bottom. You can probably get some great Kickstarter bonuses and help their dream become a reality.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.